Okay, on to example 4 here. So again, we're back to the same partnership as the first few examples. This time the quota, however, is set at 19. Since our quota is set at 19, this is what our weighted voting system will look like. Quota of 19, player 1 has 8 votes, player 2 has 7 votes, player 3 has 3 votes, and player 4 has 2 votes. So real quick, let's just check to make sure that our quota fits fits within the acceptable range of values for the quota. And remember, that range of values is the total number of votes divided by 2. The quota has to be bigger than that. And then the quota also has to be less than or equal to the total number of votes. So 20 divided by 2 is 10. And my quota is 19. And that's less than or equal to my total number of votes, which is 20. So my quota fits for the acceptable range of values for a quota. So now let's look at a situation here with this quota at 19. Let's suppose that player 1, player 2, and player 3 all vote yes. And player 4 votes no. Let's look at the situation we have. So the total number of yes votes are player 1 with 8, player 2 with 7, and player 3 with 3. That is 18 total votes. And player 4 is the only no vote, and that is 2, right? So this motion still will not pass. So player 4 having the ability to vote no can keep this from passing. So one player can keep this from passing. Let's suppose if we look at, instead of players 1, 2, and 3 voting yes, let's suppose it's players 2, 3, and 4 voting yes. So 2, 3, and 4 gives us a total of 12, right? 2, 3, and 4. Player 1, this would be a yes. Player 1 is the only no vote. Notice player 1 can keep it from passing. And it doesn't matter if we look up here how we put these votes together. We need everybody here to agree in order for a motion to pass. We have a situation here, it's unintended, but this is one player, one vote, which doesn't really seem like a big deal until you consider where these votes are coming from. Remember, each one of these votes were set up by the number of dollars that this person put in setting up this company. So if each one of these votes costs $10,000 to buy, what we have here is we have the person at the end, player 4 here, who only put up $20,000 but carries the same power as the person that put up $80,000. And that's really probably not what the board intended. All right, so let's move on. Here's a weighted voting system, and this is just random, okay? What I want to see here, what I want you to recognize here, is that we have dummies. We have players who have no power at all. For example, if you look at this weighted voting system, the quota is 11, and player one's weight is 12, this means it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Whatever player one votes, that's what's going to happen. So we call people with no power in a weighted voting system, for example, here, player two and player three are dummies because they have no power at all. And in addition to that, we know from a previous slide that player one is a dictator. So anytime you have a dictator, everybody else is going to be a dummy. Example 6, 4 college friends going to go into business, $10,000 each to get 10 shares in each partnership. The fourth player is a little short on cash, so he invests only $9,000 and gets 9 shares. 1 share equals 1 vote, and the quota is set at 75%. So first, we have to figure out how many total votes we have. So we're going to set up our weighted voting system. Okay, so the total number of votes, well, I have 3 people that have 10 votes, and I have 1 person with 9 votes. So the total number of votes here are 39. Okay, now my quota is set at 75% of the total votes. So I got to take this 75%, written as a decimal, 0.75, multiply it by the 39 votes, and I have a quota now that is equal to 29.25. And remembering we round up, so my quota I will set at 30. So here's what my weighted voting system is going to look like. I have a quota of 30. I have player 1 has 10 votes, player 2 has 10 votes, player 3 has 10 votes, and player 4 has 9 votes. So this is what my weighted voting system looks like. Take a look. If I have a quota of 30, okay, it doesn't matter what player 4 does. So an unintended consequence of setting up this weighted voting system is that player 4's vote never counts. Player 4's vote never counts. For a motion to pass, we would have to have player 1, player 2, player 3 all vote yes, no matter what. If all 3 of these don't vote yes, it's not going to pass. What we've done here is we've made player 4 is now an unsuspecting dummy. Player 4 is an unsuspecting dummy because even though it appeared to be a pretty fair way to set up this weighted voting system, we can see that once we put it into action, it doesn't really matter what player 4 says. Last example here. Consider this weighted voting system. Here, we have a quota of 12. We have 4 players, and their weights are 9 votes, 5 votes, 4 votes, 2 votes. Okay. Let's take a look at player 1 plays the role of spoiler. So what does that mean? Here's what that means. If I take player 2, 3, and 4, and I look at their total votes, if I add up 2, 3, and 4's votes, I have a 5 and a 4 and a 2. That's a grand total of 11 votes. So if 2, 3, and 4 all vote to pass, vote yes. Notice that doesn't really matter because the quota is 12, so we really need player 1 player one must always vote yes. If player one never votes yes, this thing is not going to pass. So what we have here is we have an unsuspecting, it's not really a dictator, okay? So, but player one has veto power. Okay, so here, player one has veto power. He's not a dictator because he can't pass a motion on his own, but he can certainly keep it from passing if he so chooses. So we say that player one here has veto power. So veto power happens when a player's weight, if a player has weight that's less than the quota, like here, player one, the 9 votes was less than 12, and the total number of votes minus his weight is less than the quota. So the total number of votes here is 18, minus that 9 is 11, that's less than 12. So this is how we will know that a player would have veto power. So this is kind of an important little thing. If you want to avoid this, you want to avoid players having veto power, and this is when they would have veto power. So that's pretty much it for our first section in weighted voting systems. Here's going to be your homework. It's going to probably be beneficial for you to read in the textbook, read these pages 43 to 47. Now, that doesn't mean you have to read them and memorize them. I would just go through, it kind of summarizes, maybe in a little more technical language, the stuff that we did in these videos. And then for homework, do problems 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 on pages 66 to 67. Okay. Well, hope to see you guys soon. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and contact me.